New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And we lost you again. All right, folks, we'll let you in on the secret. We've been playing in the green room for the last few minutes and going back and forth with Dr. David's sound settings, and we don't know what's going on that's causing this. Now watch, I'm going to undo the echo.
Okay, how about now?
Now I got you.
Okay.
But I also have echo. I have my echo cancellation going on. Let's see if we still have. No, and when I do reduce mic back, everything's going a little wonky on. I don't. Maybe it's my side.
How about now?
Now sounds good.
Okay. Did the reduce echo cancellation on this side?
There we go.
Nice.
All right,
Nice.
folks. Welcome to New Thought today on the New Thought Media Network, where we make it happen whether it wants to or not, I guess, sometimes. And my co-host, Elzia Sekou, here with you every week. And today we're really grateful because we have dear friend and not a stranger to the show. I can say that now, Rev Dr David Alexander from the Center for, the Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta.
That's it. That's us.
Yes.
SLCA. Hey, everybody. Great to be here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And we've got all kinds of things we want to chat about today, but I want to just kind of real quickly harken back. The last time you were with us, you had just released your book, Freedom from Discord.
Yes.
And, yep. Exactly. And I had been reading it, and we'd been reading it, and I just finished it the last time you were on. So really excited to hear how has it gone? How's the response been? What have your peers said? What have our colleagues said about the work?
Yeah, really, really great response. We had, 150 people, I think, in the initial book study from people across the country here in Atlanta and around the country, doing a live book study where I was putting out videos every week. And now if a church or a center or a group of people want to do that, they can go to New Thought Education and find that book study. All the videos are there and do their own self-paced thing. So we did that for like 8 weeks, and response was great. People loved it. I think the best response I got was from people who were in ministerial school. One in particular, I remember off the top of my head, she said, this week is the third reference I've been given directing me to get this book. And so I've gotten it. And all three of those people were spot on. I needed this. This person said I was ready to drop out. I was, disenfranchised, whatever. And I don't know the details, around what that was, but whatever they found in the book, put wind in their sails again. Like, this is what I was looking for, kind of thing. And very positive response from my colleagues in the field. I'm sure there's people who don't like it or don't agree with it or maybe dismiss it for one reason or another. They're not talking to me, so I can't tell you what they're saying. You'll have to tell me. You talk to other people and see what they say. But that's always the case. I said it actually in the book. I said, actually, I hope that I hope people have a vigorous discourse about what's being discussed here, because I'm taking liberation theology and pairing it with New Thought and talking about what, how that might influence how we access our teaching and how we promote it, how we promote it's not the right word, how we share it and how we view it, how we embody it. And I hope that there are some people who disagree with that. And I said I hope there are 5 other books that this book inspires, and 2 out of the 3 disagree with me. I mean, bring it on. Like, let's have the discussion, because that's the discussion we need to have. You both know we've had this discussion for so long, really since CSL came into existence, of adopting 12 years ago or so this vision of a world that works for everyone and awakening humanity to its spiritual magnificence. I said back then, we have no idea what we just did. We don't know what that means, the implications of that, etc. It sounds good because we're wordy people, we're wordsmith people. We love visionary, aspirational language that makes us feel good. But sometimes we get ourselves in trouble. I think both as just as individuals practicing the philosophy, but also as organizations, that we like to say the right thing, and then it's like, oh,
right.
Did
I say that?
Did I put that in my this year's intention? Did I say transform? Is that what I said? Transformation? Oh. Healing? Oh, is that, like any of us as individuals have gone through that process, right? Of our spiritual growth. I said something in my intention, and now I really have to follow through, and it's I can't exist in the old story and embody that idea and intention at the same time. Something's got to give, right? So we've been having that conversation as a movement for at least 12 years, I'm sure longer in different forms, but 12 years in relationship to this vision, this idea of a world that works for everyone. And so I felt like it was really time to put it on paper. Like, let's get away from like, I'm in the New Thought social justice camp, I'm in the old school traditional camp, I'm in the whatever, like whatever that is, like, let's just stop doing that. Let's put it on paper, black and white, and see where it goes from there, and so that's where we're at.
Nice. Yeah, I think I love that, because I remember the last time we were having this discussion when the book first came out, when we were talking about liberation theology and how some people felt about that in the movement, and I made a statement, something like, in the Black church, it's always been a liberation theology, right? And because it was about the religious and spiritual aspect of connecting with the divine, but it was also that piece that you just mentioned, this transformative piece at not only an individual level, but a community level. How do we use these teachings to transform my life and the life of others, right? And our teaching in New Thought has been, in some ways it's couched in a prosperity theology, and which has gotten its own knocks, past, present, and future, probably. And that is a part of it, because we want to be prosperous, because we want to be able to show that, yes, if I align myself with these principles and practice these laws, I can turn one thing into another. As Jesus said, I can turn the water into wine, right? But there's other things that also need to be activated at the same time. So I love the concept, and I look forward to figuring out how we vigorously, especially now, infuse this into people's everyday life so that they begin to make better choices, ask the right questions, especially in the age of AI, when it's all about the right question or the right prompt.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. It's awesome.
I like what you're sharing, and it reminds me, and this has come up in a number of conversations recently, that we sometimes have these grand concepts or these great ideas, and then when it comes time to live into it, we realize, oh, did I really say that? And I've been reflecting lately, and it's funny because I picked up the book today, and there in the afterword is the 12 principles of radical inclusivity. And that's one of those places where we've been talking, Z and I, that we watched a fairly large community publicly take that on. And even with a lot of resources and even with a lot of people behind them, it didn't take on. It became, and they eventually abandoned using the phrase and the terminology because it became really problematic, or they felt it was, let's put it that way. They felt for their organization, it was becoming problematic to be truly radically inclusive. We can be, I'm kind of inclusive. Yeah. Long you don't step on my toe or, kick my dog or anything. But other than that, they reported back kind of became really tough to be truly that inclusive. And I know SLCA has been doing a lot of work in that direction since you've gotten there, and really been guiding, if you will, or steering the ship a little more towards that. What's been your community's experience of being? I don't know if you use the term radically inclusive or not, but I watch what you're doing and stepping out into the world more. How's it been on the organizational level of things?
Yeah. We don't use the term here locally, though we certainly embody it. We strive to, and what we're doing in the local community, and how we're showing up for the greater world. And I think we are just like many communities in that, we have people who, I would never say anything disparaging about any individual in their spiritual path, but I think any spiritual community is going to be made up of people who are comfortable with the way New Thought was introduced to them. Right. And so if it wasn't introduced to them in a liberation theology context, which it probably wasn't, let's be honest, right? I mean, there are people who maybe brought liberation theology with them because they had it in their childhood or something, and they saw it in New Thought. So they married the two, or whatever. But from the top, it very likely was not framed for them in that way. And so if it wasn't, then it was framed in some other way. It was framed, very likely in a very individualistic sense, a personal philosophy, framed in a, improve your life, your lot, corner of the world kind of thing, and do what you can to help others, but it's really about you, and your consciousness. It's framed in that way, and anything we learn, if it's framed in that way, then that's the way we like it. I mean, we're all of a generation, I don't watch as much NBA, professional basketball, anymore, because they don't play like the guys played when I was growing up. Right? There's the Jordans are gone, and the Pippins, and the so on and so forth, and the game has changed, right? Same game, but so that kind of thing. So I think that's going on in all of our communities. I think people are slow to jump onto something that feels radically different, even if they think, gosh, this is what the world needs, this is where we need to go. So we have some of that going on. We have the aftershock from the pandemic of engagement, and I think in general there's a human nature thing, which is that, you began talking about it, Robert, that when you really get, when you start peeling the layers back, and you really get how deep it goes, and when you talk about things like inclusion, if your doorway is diversity or inclusion, or you want racial harmony, or whatever that doorway might be, either as an individual or as a community, and then you start peeling back the layers of like, well, what's propping this ugly thing up that I don't think belongs in society, and you start seeing how deep it goes and how far back it goes. It's kind of hard to stop the train at that point. And so a lot of times people, they go, nah, wait, whoa, that's that's not what I meant. I don't want to deconstruct my whole political ideology and think that my parents were part of something or society, or that I was a career. You know what I mean? Like it goes into all of these places where it's like, whoa, I didn't know it was going to do that. It's like, and yet what we know is like literally that's what transformation is, right? This awakening is going to transform everything.
Yeah, you remind me of those two questions from the visioning process. What must I become and what must I give up?
Right.
We talk about the visioning process and we want to pick this thing on. And I don't know if we always understand that it is a process. All of it's not going to hit you at the first time. And there are some things you have to embrace and become, and things you have to give up and let go of. And as they say, if you got a sacred cow that's not in the new direction, that might be problematic.
Right. So I think we're getting into the roots of the deep consciousness behind racism, white supremacy, capitalism, right? So you might say, well, no, I was just talking about reframing, that we should all get along and promote oneness. I want to talk about all that. Like what? Well, because that's where it goes, right? All I'm trying to do is embody the teachings, which says we can look at an error thought and get underneath it, see what the error thinking is, remove it and replace it with something else and have a different outcome that's in alignment with what our vision is. That's really all this is trying to do on a collective level. But it does mean that we're going to touch all those places along the way. We're going to touch, what is the underlying error thinking behind capitalism, behind political structures and systems, behind everything that it is propping up the whole thing, because it's all connected, because it's all one, right? We can't escape that oneness. And so I think in general people struggle with that. So in some ways I don't expect the book to be like widely popular. I do expect people to kind of push back and go, it was a good read, but I don't know if I want to go there. That's probably a good response to it.
Had too much garlic in it for me. I don't like garlic.
Yeah, and so I just, to that I say I get it. I totally get it.
David, I think I would be interested and curious to see, as the new administration takes office, and this idea of discourse, I think, will increase on a lot of levels. We see it now happening while they're not, in which, as you said, it's going to affect every sphere of life, just casual living, economics, education, and so it's going to be interesting to see if people can take a second look at the book, the idea of the book, to say, how do we free ourselves from this seesaw, teeter-totter way of living, where we just keep going back and forth, up and down, and we don't, we know that's going to be ongoing, but as one guy says, I know we're going to have highs and lows, but I want my highs to be low highs and high lows. I don't want to be up like this. I want to be in an equilibrium kind of space. And I think we have to begin to look at that, which, as you said, is going to require us, and I'm doing that somewhat in myself. What do I have to give up? What sacred cow do I have about being right, or showing my education or my viewpoint for the greater good of, well, that's going to do me no good if I'm by myself.
Yeah, I think for me, it's keeping in mind, and
that's what's happening. There's a bunch of separation as people separating in the camps.
Yeah. I think we're going to be forced with the question of, what's the goal? Where are we going? And if the goal is liberation, right, whether that's self or collective, just however you want to, whatever scale you want to put that to, what's the goal? Is the goal just getting more stuff, or just getting comfortable and being happy with life? Okay, if that's your goal, then certainly there's a level of new thought and law of attraction and affirmations that serves that, right? But if the goal is truly liberation, like truly, then you're gonna have to go all the way, and you're gonna realize how connected it is to everybody else's liberation. And here's the key, right? Even if you think the goal is, if you went, oh yeah, no, it's totally smaller than that. It's totally just, I've got to get mine and get set and be happy and comfortable. Your soul knows it's about the liberation of everything and everyone, right? That's the whole framing. When Ernest Holmes says the goal is sure to be attained by all, right? The emancipation, the freedom from discord of every nature, like that's it. And we all know that, whether we're, like raising our hands saying, sign me up for that revolution, or we're just going, I just want life to be a little bit more comfortable. Even still, there's something inside of you that knows that it knows that it knows. And that's, ultimately what my life is about, answering and trying to figure out how do we support each other in community in doing that. And yes, I think with the incoming administration, it is going to press on that button. It's going to press on all those points, because we're going to see division and pitting against, and it's not about one person. It's not even about a political ideology. What we're seeing is something in collective consciousness, right? I think it's a stat I heard on something on the radio the other day. It was like 70% of the world's governments have turned to basically autocratic, authoritarian style regimes, whether by democracy or by force. Like that's the collective of that's where it's at right now. Right. And so this freedom, liberal, multiracial, diverse coalition of equality and justice is like, that's not the winning wave of humanity right now. It's right. And so if that's what you and I say we want, we're probably going to have to fight for it, because that's not what the collective powers of government are moving towards right now. They're moving towards tribalism and pitting against each other, and this different energy. And so we're gonna see that play out, and we're gonna have to decide where our faith guides us in those conversations.
Yeah. And that's interesting, because I heard something the other day on Science Friday on NPR, and I was and you made me think of this. They were talking about the moon and its gravitational pull on water, and everybody knows that. And he says, but it also pulls on the earth. So when that gravitational pull happens, the actual physical rocks and dirt and stuff is being pulled as well, or doing its ebb and flow. And that ebb and flow has to be synchronized, or else it turns into chaos. It turns into tsunamis and things like that. And we don't need that right now, because it's not like the old tribalism where no side was really trying to annihilate the other side. It was just a little to and froing, right? We go to and fro over the water hole, or we go to and fro over the fruit tree. But I'm not going to annihilate you, so I get everything. And right now we're moving in those kinds of tribalism activities where I am looking to destroy your tribe completely, whether it's ideologically, politically, socially, whatever it is. And you must, gets back to old colonial and colonizing idea, you must adapt my ways or else. And that's a dangerous place to be in.
Yeah. And it comes, we say, well, what's behind that? Why are we there? Well, that kind of thinking comes out of scarcity. There's a great book called The Trance of Scarcity that I love. And I just love the term, the trance of scarcity, because it's like, this is trance that we're all in. and it comes from this idea that there's not enough. And so using new thought metaphysical principles, we can shift that and say, okay, well, let's replace scarcity with enoughness and the idea of infinite and prosperity and all of that. But then you see, here we go. Now that's going to lead you. Okay, so let's replace the governing, pushing idea behind how we govern ourselves and whatever type of government system around the world, with this idea of enoughness, that there's enough if we act in a responsible way. Well, then all of a sudden that's going to bring up that we're going to have to distribute what we have in a different kind of way. And so that there we're right back at justice and race and gender and all those other isms and issues, and who decides who gets what. And it's going to bring up this idea that there are in place in consciousness ideas that this group doesn't deserve that, and that group doesn't deserve this, and this group, and we deserve to have more of this because of who we are and because of whatever, right? And there's plenty of that here in this country, there's plenty of that around the world. And it's going to bring all of that up. So careful when you're holding hands on Sunday singing, let there be peace on earth, and affirming abundance, right? Because that's it. It's just like, okay, that's a great idea. And it's going to bring all those things up. Yeah. And we're going to have to work that out.
Yeah.
You were talking earlier, and it really struck me that liberation theology, to me, is in many ways the natural outcome of following the science of mind path.
Yeah.
I didn't go searching for it. I didn't know I was missing it. I just know that when I walked in, and I have been walking the science of mind path, and it continually leads me to a greater exploration of other religions, of other faith traditions, of other organizations. It continually leads me to a greater exploration of exactly what we're talking about. Am I just getting mine, or am I getting what I need so that I can be of service and support others as well? And so not just your book, but all the things that I see you doing out in the world. And we want to talk about some of those things as well a little bit here too. And is that it feels like, and it seems from my perspective, you're living this philosophy in such a way that you couldn't deny this. You couldn't hide from this. You couldn't pretend this wasn't alive within you. You couldn't. This book had to be written, and the continued work that you're doing, thinking of the phone calls and the 28 days of forgiveness, the 100 days before the election, all these different things have to be done because they're sort of that natural outpicturing of the philosophy, of what the philosophy teaches us to be.
Yeah, it's what I've referenced in the book over and over again. I call it the radical implication of our teachings. What's the radical implication of oneness, the radical implication of abundance, the radical implication of wholeness, any of the principles and things that we hold dear. I've been practicing this for the vast majority of my life, for 40 plus years now, and 50 this year. I don't know that I've been practicing New Thought person that entire 50 years, but pretty close, 45 of them at some level of awareness and engagement. And so that's a long time to be steeped in this idea that God is all there is. There is no other thing. There's no other power against that. And it's a matter of tuning our consciousness. I've been listening to Michael Beckwith since I was 10 years old, and tuning our consciousness into a vibration and a frequency of wholeness, and bringing it in and letting it express out, And so, yeah, I don't, whenever I would talk, and as I said, for last decade or so, we've been having this sort of debate, if you will, at least in the CSL movement, about some of these ideas. I always bristled at the idea that somebody thought either I or other people who agreed with some of the thoughts I would share, be it on the listserv or other spaces, was doing something radical to the teaching, or like, oh, well, you're going in a different direction. You're leaving the tradition behind, or whatever. Well, I can't even articulate what they would say, because it would just boggle my mind. It'd be like, I'm not doing anything except what my teachers taught me to do, which is to embody this thing, right? To sit with it every day in prayer and meditation, and to affirm and know that there's a power in the universe greater than I am, that I can use it, that it's using me, that it's infinite peace and abundance and wholeness and beauty and prosperity, all of that stuff. And I'm to see it everywhere that I go, and to be a vessel through which it expresses. And so is everybody else. And anywhere that I see that there are, suppressing energies to that, it is ours to liberate that, right, in whatever form. And so when we do that through embodying the teaching to a greater degree. So I don't see liberation theology and New Thought, that marriage is anything other than the natural evolution of one who sits with it long enough. Like, how do you, to me, my question would be, for anybody else, would be, how do you get to a different conclusion than the one I came to? I don't.
And you bring to mind, and I don't know who made this statement. I don't know if it was Mandela or someone else, but there's that statement that says, none of us are free until all of us are free.
Right. That's it.
And until we can be striving toward that, and layers, as you said earlier, the layers keep unfolding until we get to that pure center. It's a bunch of to and froing. Yeah.
It's a bunch of to and froing.
I like that.
I like that.
That's the next
one. And folks, we need to do a little to and froing with our sponsors and those folks that make all this happen. So we're going to give Dr. David a moment to take a breath and grab a drink of water. We're going to be back in just a minute or so with more. Please stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be back on New Thought Today with Dr. David Alexander coming up.
Join our celebration of Black History Month. Only on New Thought Media Network. New videos every day at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, or watch anytime on our YouTube channel. 28 unique Black History moments. Every day in February. Come join us as we celebrate Black History Month.
New Thought Media Network proudly presents the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series, January 31st through April 4th. Embrace nonviolence every day with our 64 unique video meditations. Join us at 6 a.m. Mountain Time, or watch anytime on our YouTube channel. Featuring a collection of New Thought voices, the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series. Only on New Thought Media Network, January 31st through April 4th.
And we're back with more of New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. Our special guest, Rev Dr. David Alexander. And, wouldn't you know, just before we went on the break, our dear friend Savannah, Rev Savvy chimed in. I think of liberation in the context you're using it as freedom as the core of this teaching. Ernest talked about this in the What We Believe statements.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And on the first page of the text in the Science of Mind, the first page of chapter 1, which is actually page 25, freedom is the divine birthright of every living soul. The divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. It's, right there on the first page, he gets right to it. Freedom, again, what's the direction? What's the destination of our own soul as individuals, but also of the planet or of humanity as a collective? Where are we going? The destination is liberation. The destination is freedom. It's to be emancipated, to be liberated from any idea of doubt or lack or limitation. And all those isms and outer justice issues are just, scaled up versions of those internalized, doubts and limitations. So yeah, again, I don't see how you come to any other conclusion than that. But I'm sure there are people who do.
And you bring to mind that one of the things that I see a lot, the spirituality of ecology and the spirituality of weather and looking at all these systems, as Ezekiel would say, wheels within a wheel. If you look at that biblical reference, is that we got all these things that traditionally have been left out of the equation, but now they're coming in and saying, "Hey, you can't leave me out, Jack, because if you do, there gonna be some consequences." And so we have to broaden that, because we got to free the earth, if you will, free the weather, free this, free that.
Yes,
because it's a oneness that has to be free.
That's right. For me, that's why I like, you asked earlier about, kind of what we're doing or how we do it locally. It's why our phrase at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta is "You belong." I don't have my sweatshirt on. I have my Unity one from Unity Village, but we have shirts and T-shirts that say "You belong," and that is the reason, is because it's about the relationship between all of those things, or the ecology, the earth, the air, the animals, all of the aspects of our living, and the way that shows up. We're in relationship to all of those things, and relationship is expressed through, if I belong, right, then I'm in relationship to the thing that I'm talking about. If I belong to you, if I don't belong, then I can say, well, but I'm not part of that. So, right, I don't drink water, so I'm not part of that group, So, well, you're 70% water, but, or whatever it is, right? If we disassociate, it's easy to oppress, to not think about it, to, section it off from our caring and our consciousness. But if we're all one, then we belong to everything, and everything belongs to us. And where that gets difficult and challenging is like, oh, well, that means I belong to the stuff I don't like. That means I belong to, who's about to be, inaugurated into the White House. I don't particularly care for that idea. But you see, but the choice that I have is either I belong to that, and if I belong to that, then I'm in relation to it. If I'm in relation to it, then I can examine that relationship. Well, what is the nature of that relationship, right? And what am I doing about it, consciously or unconsciously, to make that a healthy relationship? But if I say I don't belong to it, then I have no responsibility to it whatsoever, and I can dismiss it out of hand. But even as I'm dismissing it out of hand and saying I don't belong to it, I'm still participating in a universe of oneness in which I do in fact belong to it. And so my ignorance is not bliss. It's not serving me. And I still belong to the thing that I don't want to belong to. So belonging is really the way locally, in terms of our teaching at SLCA, that we bring this to the forefront and make it personal. You belong. And so that's a healing thing, but that's also a deeply relational thing that gets us engaged with everything that's happening around us.
Speak of relationships, and I think that's also, like, it's so huge, because if I'm not in that relationship, there's no chance for forward movement, for growth, for evolution. I say it in my prayer work all the time, that even those I don't agree with, even those I don't understand, even those I don't like, and we all have those, but I have to really be able to embrace the truth that there too is God. There too is the one. There too is the divine walking in its own way. And I trust that, not that we're usually all that huge on the term karma, but I trust in that long arc of the moral universe. That if you are using this power for nefarious ends. If you are using these principles and this philosophy to just enrich yourself and the heck with everybody else, that, well, cause and effect works, and spirit's taking on form and abandoning that form, and you're going to find out you might be the form that's being abandoned, and you are that dying grasp, that last grasp of an idea or a way of being that just is no longer necessary.
I say about that very thing in the book. I say, if that's the case, if that's the relationship we choose to have with it, then call it what it is, which is a philosophy of personal privilege, rather than a philosophy of oneness. And own that, be like, I'm in this for my personal privilege and to enhance that personal privilege, and make my life as great and wonderful as I can, and to heck with everybody else, because they're up to their own consciousness, and they got to get out of it themselves. Okay, own that, but call that what it is. I don't call that new thought. I don't call that oneness, right? I call that personal privilege, and and you have a philosophy or I wouldn't even say theology, because I think theology is collective. That's James Cone. He says philosophy is personal, theology is collective. So I wouldn't say that's a theology of privilege. I would say it's a philosophy, a personal philosophy. Own that, just name it. But I don't think that's what most people in our organization and in our teaching that are attracted to it, that ultimately that's what they really want, even if that's what brought them in the door, because I think personal success and well-being is obviously brings all of us to the altar, brings all of us to attention at some level. So there's nothing wrong with that. But it just simply making the point in liberation theology that it doesn't stop there. It can't stop there.
Yeah, you bring to mind the mathematical term of prime numbers, right? Prime numbers are numbers that are divisible only by themselves and one, which means they're derivative of, right? And which makes oneness and relationships prime. And without that, nothing else is existing, because there's nothing that stands alone. There's nothing that stands alone in isolation to something else. And the more we can kind of wrestle with it, because it could be a tough thing to get a hold of, then I think it becomes a lot easier to incorporate the things that irritate us, or the things that we don't like, or the things that take away some of my personal privilege, and begin to realize that I might have more privilege if I include somebody as opposed to exclude somebody.
Right. Yeah.
And if I never try it and understand that these relationships are prime, I'm just going to be railing at the wall, and God knows what will happen.
Beautiful.
I'm like, I can picture and mostly because that's what we've built New Thought Media Network on. That idea that it isn't just about me and my perspective and my perception and my way of saying it. It's about how do we create a collective organization where that rising tide lifts all boats. And I think there's a number of really good organizations out there doing that. And there's some that might want to catch up with the idea of we rather than just me. But, and what I want to come around to is that you, David, and SLCA have been pioneers in bringing more of that we-ness into the world. So with the social action work that you've been doing as far as the 100 days leading up to the election, and as I mentioned earlier, that kind of rolled over into a 28 days of forgiveness practice through the month of through November and into December. And I'd love to hear a little more of your perspective of how is that working, and how is that supporting this movement forward around liberation theology and New Thought.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'd love to talk about it. It all is an embodiment of what we've been discussing so far in terms of just the natural evolution and trying to do what we can. I had a congregant who came to me probably about 120 some odd, maybe 128 days before the election. And she was, in a bit of a panic. She kind of cornered me in the social hall afterwards, and she was like, "We got to do something. It's 128 days. We got to focus. Like everybody should be on the same page. Like we need to be affirming and praying every day." And like, she just rattled off this stuff, and she was absolutely right. And my immediate response, was kind of like, well, everybody's got to do their own work, and yeah, we should all be praying every day, and all of that. But then I went away from that, went home, and I sat with it, and I just went, what? She's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do? What can I do? What can we do? And what would that look like? And I just sat with it in prayer and meditation. And I knew Reverend Mani in Albuquerque. I knew she did a prayer call thing using some online technology. I knew I've seen Reverend Lola Wright and others do daily call stuff. So I knew there was technology, and I'm a tech junkie, kind of, so to speak, and at least a novice anyway. And so I knew of certain things, and it was like, well, let me just do a little bit of research. And what if we did? She said we need to be praying every day. And I said, gosh, what if we, okay, conference call. We could actually invite everybody onto a call every day and do it live, but that's 120 some odd days. That's a lot of work. Affirmations are short and sweet, and so literally I sat down and just everything, including the branding and getting into Canva and doing it. Like I just opened up my laptop, and the whole design of the whole thing just flowed right out of me. I was reading Prentice Hemphill's book at the time, What It Takes to Heal. And I said, 100 days is a long time. Can't just be 100 random things. There needs to be some sort of structure, to it. I said, if we had like, again, some number, a 3, a 5, a 7, a 10, something that we could repeat a number of times that equals up to 100. I open up the book. It's 10 chapters. The chapters were longer than the words, but what I ended up using as those, what I called somatic healing principles, love and engagement and vision and so on and so forth. Those 10, they just came out of those 10 chapters. And I just went, oh, it was all there. Everything I needed was literally at my fingertips. And so I just, again, wrote it all down, called people. I see John Scott. I called, John Scott, D.E. Paulk, Bishop Flunder, Michael Beckwith. I reached out to either by email, text, or voice call, not quite 20 people, maybe 15 people that I was pretty sure I'd get a yes from. And then I thought, I'll kind of fill in the gaps from there. And then, so I kind of had this whole architecture, and it was like making it easy for them. Hey, would you record a message? It's going to be focused on this particular principle on this day. Could you do 2 or 3 of them? If you could do 1, could you do 2? Kind of, if you could do 2, could you do 3? I get 20 people to do 3 of them or whatever, I'll be all right. And then word got out, and then people were calling me, and it got posted on the listserv. And then people I don't want to just to sound the wrong way, people I didn't invite, I don't mean that, but that I didn't call initially, but people were just like, yeah, I'll do. Yeah, I want in. I want to do it. And so I was saying yes to everybody. And then before I knew it, all the days were gone. And I ended up, I think I did 1 out of the whole 100 days. I recorded, because it wasn't about me, right?
Right.
It was about what we were doing, and it was huge that we got up to. So when I made the first announcement about it, it was 7 days before launch, and I put it on social media. Almost immediately, I had about 100 people sign up. Went to my Sunday service, I had like 97 people. The end of that day, I had maybe 300 people. End of that week, we had over 900, and before the first broadcast, we had 1,600 people signed up. And then it peaked. It kept growing throughout the entire 100 days. We ended up broadcasting to over 3,000, almost 3,500 people throughout the series. I mean, it was amazing. It was just all organically. We didn't. If I had thought about it, we would have bought an ad at Science of My Magazine or Unity or somewhere else, right? Would have really gotten it pushed out broadly. But it was just all word of mouth. 3,000 people, and then as we get to the end, people didn't want it to stop. They said, "What are you doing next?" I was exhausted. I was, the messages every day. Like, what do you mean? What am I doing next?
I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
Taking a break. Yeah. And it was like, okay, people wanted to keep going, and so I just thought, well, and I've been part of, as I said, I've mentioned some people who have done daily things like every day, like nonstop, and I don't know about other people, but I get a little tired of that. Like, even if I've signed up for something for every day, at a certain point, like, it's not effective to me anymore, and I have to unenroll and then maybe join back in at another time. And so I wasn't really keen on doing something every day, because I just thought we'd lose, momentum. And the software can be expensive to run it and everything. So I thought, I don't want to squeeze too much out of this turnip here, right? So I thought the keys to the success were diverse voices. I wasn't the one recording it. It was, you never know who you were going to get. And the people who did it were great. Everybody's voices were different, and they put their own spin. Some people had background music going on. I mean, it was just wonderful, beautiful. And from different backgrounds, Unity, CSL, New Thought, some of my progressive Pentecostal folks, and some people in the mindfulness community. A great guy by the name of Reggie Hubbard, who's not in any of our New Thought communities, but he's a mindfulness yoga instructor. So we reached out to those fields as well. So I thought the diversity of voices, and I thought the short period of time. So when I sat down and was kind of evaluating it towards the end, I thought, we really have something here that's a template, and it's really about utilizing the principles. It was about a focusing intention over a specific intention over a specific period of time. So intention, attention, in a bite-sized way that was easy, accessible for people. So they didn't have to come to me. It came to them through the phone delivery, voicemail or live. And so I thought, if I can repeat that formula, focused intention over a certain period of days, focused on something specific, and it delivers to them, people sign up for it if they want it. If they don't want it, that's fine. And so that kind of launched what we now call the New Thought Mindset Ministry. And it's programs that are focused intention. So the second one we did was 28 Days of Forgiveness, teamed up with Michelle Wadley. She's got some great literature, great book on forgiveness. Again, invited a diversity of voices to record the focuses, and did the 28 days. We are now transcribing those 28 days, because that was the other thing people asked for in the election program. They said, can I get a transcript of this? Or actually people kept saying, can you send it to me in text? And I was like, no, it would be a very long text. and it would be so long, and the systems that deliver that, we would charge you for that, being that long. So it's like, no, we're not going to do that. But with the 28 days, I realized, I've got all these audio files. I can transcribe them, and then I can post them. And so we're now teaming up with our other platform that we have at SLCA, New Thought Education, and taking the dates away, but soon you'll go in and find the 28-day program of forgiveness, sign up for it, pay a small fee for it, and you'll get the transcription of the daily message. You'll get the audio message that was delivered, plus a visual of the affirmation for that day, all delivered to your email, one day at a time, for 28 days. So we'll drip feed it with no date parameter. It's not 28 days that starts on November 30th and goes to this, but it's just 28 days whenever you're ready. So your day one is the day after you sign up. So that is the evergreening process that we're doing it. Yeah. So now we've got 2 layers, right? So we're going to do something on relationships. We'll do something on finances. We'll do these things that will be date parameter specific. Join us for the next 30 days from this day to this day on this. That's live. And then we will transcribe that, package it up a little bit, shine it up a little bit, put it in the evergreen system where then people can still find it, if they missed that, particular date window, and just keep doing that. And what we found, so the 28 days of forgiveness had 963 people that signed up for it. those numbers, both programs, the 28 days and the election, those are numbers far bigger than I've ever reached in my 20 years of history on any given, even if I'm generous with social media and all the other, we all lie about our numbers anyway, but yeah, I'm glad, COVID kind of broke us of the habit of asking each other, what your attendance numbers are. It's like, well, who cares? But those numbers are far exceed, of anything I've done in 20 years that I considered successful. And I do consider what I do even on Sundays to be successful. And so we hit something that works for people that they want. They want it delivered to them. They want it accessible. They want diversity of other voices, a focus on something. So we're going to keep massaging and getting that well-oiled machine of that industry right, and again using it to lift other people, to other authors, other people, content providers, and lifting their voices. And then I think people will still continue to lend their voice to it because they get to promote they get to say, I'm Robert Brzezinski from New Thought Media, or whoever, from this church, and so they get to put their voice out there, and somebody listening to it might say, gosh, I love that voice. I love, or what they said, or oh, they're from Sacramento. Oh, my sister's in Sacramento. Like it's a self-promoting, thing that they get to get their little 30-second commercial out there. So I think the whole formula really works, and we just kind of stumbled upon it. It was a total God thing, and we're looking forward to doing more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely captured people's desires to be a part of something, as you've been saying today, a desire to belong, a desire to be active, and to make these principles, these practices real, not just in their own lives, but this is that evolution into the lives of those around us and into the greater community. Nobody's creating a world that works for everybody alone. Right. We're all in. We all got to be in this together. So, and you kicked. You might not know this, but this was the year that I kind of said, all right, I can't play small and just do a little something for the season for nonviolence. David's calling us to our greatness here, and so we're doing 64 days of meditation.
Yeah, I saw.
A little bit longer, but and I know you've signed up to be a part of it, so this is your official reminder to get that recording in. You know what it's like chasing around.
Oh, do I?
Now you know what it's like. So, but if more and more of us can bring forward new and unique ways of sharing the message, sharing the philosophy, sharing the theology, we can build a world where liberation is the norm, where we are working together, where this is all working for everybody. So we're rapidly running out of time here, David. We could probably go on for days and days, but I want to thank you for being a part of this. Anything we didn't get to, or any final thoughts you want to make sure we know about before we wrap all this up today?
No, thanks for having me. I would just say, check out what we got going on at newthoughtaeducation.com. That's where our programs are, and the ministry that supports that is Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta, slca.com. What I'm up to is at RevDavidAlexander.com, but they're all connected. You can all find everything from everywhere. So it's all good. Always a pleasure to be with you guys, and let's keep inviting people into the practice one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Rev Z, final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'm just going to create a mantra. Relationships are prime. Let's build them and keep them and make them strong.
I love that.
There we go. Relationships are prime. I love it. Folks, on behalf of the New Thought Media Network, all of us here, thank you for being with us. We'll be back again next week. Reverend Dr. Joy Fletcher from the International New Thought Alliance, on the board of directors there, will be with us next week. And Dr. David, I hope we'll be able to get you back again before the end of the year.
Definitely before the end of the year.
We're going for more than just once a year with some people now. So
all right, I love it. Let's do it.
Until next time, folks. Peace and blessings. Bye now.